Hello there. Welcome to the Starfish Cast. My name is Niko. I'll be your host. I'm the founder of Konsensus Network, the Starfish Organization, first Bitcoin-only publishing house. And this show is all about putting a face to what we do behind the scenes, how we operate. And to that end, we have wonderful guests, contributors who have been with us for quite a while, sharing their story with you. And today we have Arnold, a good contributor from the Dutch team, and to talk about his experience and talk about how he got interested in Bitcoin, how he found us, and basically just jam. Arnold, how's it going?
Very good, and thanks for having me. Exciting to talk a bit about our projects in the past years already.
Yeah, you've been with us since how long? 2020? I want to say.
I think I joined somewhere September, October 2020, right at the end of the Bitcoin standards, Dutch version.
Right.
It was already started, and I joined like one of the last guys in the project.
Right. But yeah, it's safe to say that you're one of the earlier contributors, I think. I don't remember many contributors coming before you. Maybe the Finnish team and maybe some Portuguese. But then Dutch was the first big project that we did, and you were a very important part of that.
Yeah, I've been working as the editor of the translation. So I think the total team was a pretty big team as well. We were working on it with 12 or maybe even 15 people on one book.
Yeah, I think it was 15 people. Yeah,
it was a lot with a lot of different styles of writing, translations, and also a time commitment to make the projects happen, but luckily I could manage it all with the last editing round.
Right. Yeah, that was amazing actually that you managed to navigate your way around that team, because it's 15 people. I mean, we learned a lot during that project, and a lot of it was like how not to do things and how to maybe be more efficient. Not to say that it was quite efficient for that kind of thing. Like, I think the smallest contribution was less than 1% of the book. Like we have this sheet that we track the work of everybody. So I think the smallest contributors were just doing like less than 1% of the book.
Yeah, and I think it was the first Dutch book as well that's been delivered, and it was quite a success as well. So we did something very well, looking back.
Yeah, definitely. And we have the results to show that it's still, I believe it's still the best selling book of Konsensus Network. So kudos on that.
Yeah. Kudos to the whole team.
Yeah. I mean, without the Dutch Bitcoin standard, we wouldn't be able to grow so fast in 21. Of course, the bull market helped, but it was kind of like a perfect storm of, having good content and having interest in the topic and in a good region. I mean, Dutch region is quite Bitcoin oriented, I would say.
Yeah, there are several strong communities, and once they start embracing projects, it's like not the sky's the limit, but it will spread very fast, and people like orange pilling with, for example, book as gifts or even contributing, because that's why there's such a big team of interested people as well. And that's how I got involved in it as well eventually.
So let's journey back a little bit. And you said orange pilling. So maybe you can say a little bit about your orange pilling story and how did you get involved in the whole Bitcoin scene, and then how did you find Konsensus and decided to contribute to the project?
Yeah, well, I think for me it didn't start as orange pilling. I was being shit-pilled, whatever you call it. It was in 2016, talking with some friends about the whole crypto scene and all projects that were appearing with the ICO phase and etc. And I think in 2017, I really joined the communities, started contributing with some articles, writing, blogging actually about the projects. And then I graduated 2018 from my studies, product design. Did not work a single second on it as a product designer, but moved on to my hobby, which was writing about Bitcoin and back then also other cryptocurrencies. And as everyone, you slowly move towards Bitcoin only. That makes the most sense. It's all the puzzle pieces fit together. It's the only puzzle that will be a real puzzle eventually. And so over time, you started working on more and more projects. Started with copywriting, writing about the news. I made some little booklets, course to explain people about Bitcoin, a magazine. And eventually, I think, on Twitter, I found Konsensus. You were looking for an editor for the Bitcoin standard. And since I've been working with text and Bitcoin a lot and education, I was like, maybe this is something I should do. Also because I was, as I told you, I was graduated, but trying to make money in the Bitcoin space as a freelancer and just doing what I love. And editing books was a good match in that. So I think we came in touch, got introduced to the team, and then from there, everything else happened over the years.
So how was the experience, joining the team? You were one of the, I think the last ones to come into the team, because that's usually how it goes. We need somebody to run the teams as the editor and take care of the quality control. And you stepped in. So how was it when you arrived and there was 14 or 15 other people in the team?
Yeah. So there are several phases of translation, from raw translation to a first big proofread based on this first translation. And after that, there are more suggestions being done. And then the fourth phase that was my job as an editor, to make everything. That's one book. You got introduced to the team, you join a Telegram chat, you start reading what's being done and where the project really is. So at that point, many people had already been working on it for a while. I don't even remember when the project really started, but it feels like it was already a half year, but you know that better. So, and then once I joined, basically all the chapters were in Dutch already, being translated by others. And it was time to make one final version that's print ready, has consistency between all the chapters, the same style of writing, get out all the typos and grammar errors, do some typesetting as well. And then I remember we had to reach the deadline of Christmas, because of course we want to have it under the Christmas tree. So that everything came together with the deadline, all the work that was being done by other people before me, and one end result.
Yeah, that's really, I already forgot about that. You're right. It was almost done. It must have been about 6 months before you came in. And that makes it even more impressive, because right now, we've gravitated towards having the editor first, so that they can, the editor can kind of look at the quality as it's been written, rather than working on the already made.
Yeah, and since the Bitcoin Standard, I've been working as an editor on 3 different books as well, and the process was already different indeed. Maybe because I was already involved in Konsensus, but also best practices, figuring out what works. And I think even at our last book, Pride of Tomorrow, we may talk about other books later, but we already did something different in the editing process as well, to engage all the translators to make an even better version, to see what is being improved in that phase. So people also really know what's happening in this last step, where they usually were not involved in anymore, because they did their part of the contribution.
So did you find it difficult to put together kind of more than 10 different people's work? I don't remember how many raw translators we had. I want to say we probably had 4 or 5. So it must have been very different writing style. Did you have to rewrite a lot of stuff, or was the content mostly good already?
Well, there was a lot of, you could see the differences between chapters that were delivered. And I remember everything had, from when it started the editing, it was late October, I think. And late November, we wanted it to be done. So I had 4 or 5 weeks back then to make it read everything, but not once, not twice, but 4 or 5 times. And because of this kind of pressure, I was being helped by some of the translators, other translators as well in that process. So obviously by everything you're doing, people could help. And when I'm figuring out something wait, this chapter is really different compared to number 1, 2, and 3, 4 needs some more attention, there were already always people to help And even when you say like, okay, this should be the 95% version, it's in PDF, typesetting is done, and you share it. Of course, other translators that have time help in that process again. And that was, I think, because there was the advantage of more people that were helping. So you have this second eye or these fresh eyes, not really fresh, like it's a different, you have more people that can help in this last phase as well. So I think that's really cool that you're also working on it together. It's not, you give it from A to B and from B to C and then it's done, but it's like a project with all of you together at the same time and no one is really leading. Of course, there's some organization happening, but I see it as a project achievement or like a team achievement.
Yeah, definitely. That's the whole point of a Starfish organization. It's like leadership without the top-down traditional structure. So the leadership happens from within the team, working in the trenches together as a team. And I think that's the strength that also breeds better quality because people want to contribute. Everybody's putting in their proof of work. And my feeling is that, people don't want to let other people down either. So everybody's kind of like pulling their weight and doing their best. And that's just, don't really experience that in fiat life. It's something unique to Bitcoiners specifically, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool that everyone is also working asynchronously. So one is working on this evening and the next day someone else continues with proofreading what's being done and everyone basically working on it whenever works the best, which I think also makes product better. Instead of putting people on a project that has to work a certain amount of hours on a day to like get the task done. I think that's also a really cool process to see. It's like an organism, like everywhere, and in all places and all times it's being worked on.
Yeah, so we with like the way the process works is that we have really rough basic guidelines of how to approach the work, but then from there on, the team kind of just makes it their own and grows into the project based on their specific skill sets. How did you find that approach, like with the guidelines? And maybe since you've been so long with us, well, how have you seen that kind of like framework develop? And maybe if you have even some development suggestions, that would be cool to hear probably.
Yeah. So, the first book, Bitcoin Standard, I joined when the first phases were done and it was up to me to finish it. So there was not much space, and also not time to discover what works the best or to explore within what needs to be done. And so there was the Bitcoin Standard. And after that, I worked on Fanatic for Bitcoin, I think with a team of 5 people. So it was already less. And since this is a book that's written from a Christian perspective, there was also like a different motivation for the translator, I think, to work on it. Because there's not a lot written about these two religions. There's a religion too, I think it is sometimes. So that's already, the team was different. It was smaller and I was there from the beginning as well. So you can guide everything. Also, like, let's try to finish the raw translation in month, let's say April. So I have 1 month to like see who can do the chapters, what chapters for the proofreading, etc. So you can already set some more, not deadlines because it's not set in stone, but guidelines. That's a better word. And the book was also written very differently because the Bitcoin Standard is like Said Fadini can write beautiful sentences, but they're long and sometimes tough. And also the terminology is not always easy to translate. So there is a lot. You need every sentence. You need to read it like 3 or 4 times to really get the best way to put words in order, in the right order. And Thank God for Bitcoin was already very different. It was easier to read. It's not 400 pages, but maybe 100 and something. So that was already totally different. And then after that, I did the Fiat Standard editing, which we go back to 1 sentences, but a smaller team. I don't remember with how many, but I think it was also 5 people, maybe 4 or 5. And in these projects, we also had more time to do some fresh eye reading. So you recruit outsiders to read the PDF before it's being printed, which we also did not have in the first, in the Bitcoin standard, if I remember that correctly. So yeah, I think over time the team became smaller, and then we added some more fresh eyes readers like after the final version to improve it. Then lastly, that's some months ago, 3 months ago, I finished The Price of Tomorrow from Jeff Booth, also with a smaller team. And we did exactly the same, also with the fresh eyes at the end. I think it was 1 or 2 people doing that. Yeah, it evolved a little bit with like how it's being approached, but also maybe because the first one was unique. I joined later. It's a difficult book. It was a big team. And from there, it was, moving into the better directions.
Yeah, and from many perspectives, that was like the quintessential trial project for Konsensus. We did some projects before where we kind of established this framework, but that was like the first really big project with a big team and a big goal as well. Like you said, we wanted to get it out for Christmas, which we did eventually. And by the way, I think we were all caught our pants down a little bit with the sales because it was so overwhelming. Like, we actually sold out within like 2 weeks because I only ordered 1,000 copies, I think, for the first run. And we already pre-sold around 400 throughout the year because we started pre-sale a little bit earlier.
Yeah. And also the timing was perfect. Not only Christmas, but also like in the hype cycle. And
yeah, it was the perfect storm. Yeah. Yeah. So we ended up actually selling out. We sold, I think, more than 1,000 copies in December 2020. Yeah, that was.
I think many pre-order as well.
Yeah.
Already. Yeah.
So yeah, actually we ran out and then we had to wait for the new batch, but that arrived early January. And that's the only time in Konsensus history that we ran out of stock on a book to this day. That was pretty cool. But yeah, and it continued to sell because the bull market kept on going. There was a lot of interest on that book. So that was a really, really cool experience to see kind of like this Starfish produced, sweat equity funded project take off that way. Amazing.
Yeah. And then I think I haven't mentioned it, but I think so far, at least on the Dutch side, Bitcoin Standard is also the only book that has a revision, a version 1.2 or 2.0, whatever you call it. So then with a small team, we did another layer of reading. I think it was half a year or maybe a year after to improve it, because it was not perfect. And it's like if you read it 10 times, you think you found all the small minor mistakes or whatever errors there are, or even like how a sentence is made. You can write the same words in many different orders. So then we made a second revision, a new version, and I think also a hardcover later. So that was also being improved because, it was a success, as you mentioned. Yeah, and that was also part of the editor team or role, with some others together. Yeah.
Yeah. There was also the original was revised with a new foreword by Michael Saylor. The original one had the one with Taleb, which was not that great. So later versions have that removed. And there's something else special about the first version, and it's out of production, by the way. You can't have it anymore. Congratulations if you snatched the first version, because it is a special one, because it actually has the 13th chapter that is removed from the version 2.
Yeah, right.
So the original version 1 is the most comprehensive version. Yeah, it doesn't have Saylor's forward. It doesn't have all the revision done on it, but it has the most content because there's an extra chapter about scaling and Lightning Network, which is later removed because Saifedean released the fiat standard that goes through that topic. So it made more sense to condense the original book. But there are some versions around with the 13th chapter, and also the Finnish version. That was the first one we put the extra chapter in. And I think the Finnish version is on version 1.28 or something like that. So these are like rolling projects. I think maybe we reached the point where there's no more updates expected for this specific book, Bitcoin Standard, and we will focus on new books. But it's interesting. Like we published it as a good enough version. It's not perfect, and we knew that. And also we got a lot of feedback from the readers, but in general, the feedback was very encouraging and good. And there was not a lot that needed to be fixed. So you did a good job on that, because it's not easy to, specifically Saifedean's book. I personally, I'm a big fan of his writing style, but it is, in terms of translation, it's quite difficult to work. I would even say that AI translation is pretty useless against Saifedean's writing, because his sentence structures just don't translate into other languages.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, unless you read it, understand it completely, then explode it into atoms and then put it back together in your own language and kind of like rewrite the whole book. And I think this process happened, at least in the Finnish version, and I think in the Dutch version as well. And those are the books that we gotten the most positive feedback as well. So while I think that is inevitable that AI will kind of like overtake the raw translations, it seems that way. There's still a lot of value in the manual labor, and I don't think that's going to be replaced anytime soon. And of course, different books are, like you mentioned, Thank God for Bitcoin, very different book indeed. Books like that are way better suited for automatic AI translations that then you can clean up and you can shave off quite a bit of time from the raw translation. But yeah, just need to, and that's also the key role of the editor, to make those calls, right? I mean, when can you use AI? When you shouldn't do that?
Yeah, and sometimes you see some people do use it, or they use Google Translate and the other use DeepL, and then it's already a different style of translation with AI. And for example, I remember in the Bitcoin standard, we had some Dutch translators and also one or two Flemish, which also is a little bit different. So yeah, it's good to maintain the quality and try to get the best for the book. Then maybe a bit more work, or you have to choose, or you have to mention it. Need some more double checks, but eventually it's about the result, I guess. And what you mentioned, it's funny because positive feedback, I heard it as well. For example, when you're talking on meetups or with even Bitcoiners in El Salvador, Dutch Bitcoiners, they mention the Bitcoin standard, the Dutch book, like, you should really read it. It's like, I was one of the translators. I've been working on it. My name is somewhere in the front. It's like, it's about the result. It's about Bitcoin. It's about the book, and it's not about like the whole team behind it, essentially. And that's fun to hear that people are also promoting it. Like, and I love Bitcoin, and you should read this book. It's like, I know what's in there.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that the best compliment though? Like you know that it's going to be genuine, because if they don't even know, and you were part of the project, and they're basically marketing it to you on their own. So that's wonderful. I run into that from time to time. Like, people are starting to find our books on their own, maybe through traditional channels or whatever. They don't even know who we are. And that's kind of like the point also. Like, of course, I take pride, and I'm sure that all the teams take pride in their work and having their name there and being a part of that and being recognized. But also, that's not the point why we're doing this. The point is exactly to inspire people and educate people. And when people do that out of their own free will and pay for a service that we made with their hard-earned money on their own in the free market, I mean, there's no better compliment than that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What about the future? How do you see your day-to-day role in the Konsensus or your development ideas? You mentioned that you're working on a couple different projects already. Do you have anything else in the horizon that you want to talk about? And not only necessarily Konsensus, but other projects as well.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I started doing Bitcoin stuff after I graduated, and do as many cool projects as possible to have some cash flow. So translating books is one of it. And then besides that, I did different things. I once made a magazine, educational one. It was not with Konsensus because I think, I was approached by someone else for a course that I already made. So I made a write-up and they did the print. And currently we're thinking about a magazine. It's like we're having some ideas if it would be possible to make magazines for the Dutch market, but that's work in progress. There's not a lot to be that can't be said about it yet. So that's something that's I'm exploring right now. Besides that, I know there are many books still talking about consent that are still also work in progress that need an editor or need more translators. But I'm not sure if I'll focus on that right now. I just finished Prize tomorrow, so usually when there's really a need for an editor, I'll appear somewhere when I have time. But I think
you raise to the occasion.
Yeah, exactly. So, but for now, I think focus will be on this a Dutch magazine, perhaps. Let's look into it. And I'm also working on a Bitcoin board game at the moment, which hopefully will be out in the public very soon as well. I made a documentary about Bitcoin Island in the Philippines. See how the circular economy is doing. Building Bitcoin Focus NL, which is a pay-per-view media publication, where people can buy content like with individual lightning payments. So that's cool. Yeah, a lot of different things. It's all Bitcoin related and kind of education and sharing knowledge and the Bitcoin work with communities. And Konsensus is one of the funnels for that.
Yeah, that all sounds amazing, and there's no shortage of work in Bitcoin. Like whatever your skill set is, you will find a place.
The only thing we need is proof of work.
Exactly. I mean, it's the moon is not going to build itself. Like that's what I keep telling people. Like people like to say, just stack sats and stay humble, but that's not the whole story. Like who's going to build all the cool stuff that we want to use, and who's going to make the world or better. It's not going to be only about stacking sats and grinding it in your fiat life. It's also taking these huge personal risks to realize the visions that we all want to see for our grandchildren. Basically, that's my view on it. So I keep telling people like, just stacking sats is great. Of course, I mean there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I'm not saying that. It's just that it's not everything. Like it's we need builders, we need proof of work, we need people to start projects and help with projects and fund projects. And to that end, you mentioned the board game. What's the name of the board game?
It's Blockhunters.
Blockhunters.
It's been we're working on it for 2-3 years now, and it's like it used to be an Albi project. It doesn't have a website yet. It's not in the final version, but we're trying to raise some funds at, for example, Geyser, with the grants, where I think you guys are also applying for the translations part to make this final step happen towards like a real design, and the graphic design that's like professional and not me. I'll be made in some Illustrator tools. And then also to be able to make the first print. So with plastic prints. And then once that's ready, we can put it out in the public with some high quality branding and hopefully try to orange pill our families, friends with a fun game instead of like reading material, because that's also a bit where it came from. Like everything on Konsensus is, you have to read books or maybe magazines, which more based on pictures and illustrations, but not everyone is learning through reading. So I think there's more to be explored in that sense as well, to make, for example, Bitcoin only board games in which you explain the essence of scarcity and not your keys, not your coins, halvings. Like why is there not more Bitcoin? And what if the game runs out of Bitcoin? Where does it come from? Well, that's reality. We're not going to make more. It's not monopoly where you can always take more from the bank and all those kind of things. Like what is mining? Is it making calculations? No, it's doing random guesses with random numbers. And if you can guess the most, you're more likely to make the block, and all those kind of technical concepts to make it fun for people to comprehend, basically.
Yeah, that's something that I'm really interested in too. Like we kind of already have the Bitcoiners, like we have the era of Bitcoiners, but we are kind of small population globally. So it's not going to be enough to just pander to that existing audience and just service them. We need ways to break through to the mass markets. And I think something like a board game seems like a really good way to do that, because but not everybody is interested in nonfiction books. Maybe majority is not, especially books about money, economics, technology. They're all kind of like fringe in the mass perception. And to that end, we also are expanding to fiction books. I don't know if you heard about the project of 21 Futures.
Yeah, with the contributions from many different people, right?
Yeah. The idea is to open it to submissions for everybody, but the end goal is to have just interesting, fantastic stories that are set in or around the Bitcoin verse, kind of like look through the lens of Bitcoin. So not really like Bitcoin content per se, just interesting stories that happen to introduce these elements that you mentioned in the board game as well. This concept of scarcity and how those may affect humans' lives and what kind of futures might result from that. So I think that kind of fantastic stories can be a portal or like a gateway to, towards the rabbit hole. And then once people start to arrive, it will be much easier to tip the scales and for the people to fall into the rabbit hole. So I think this kind of bridge is missing right now in the Bitcoin world. We're still very much catering to our like hobbyist community, and I want to try to change that. So yeah, it's really cool to hear that you're making the board game. I'm really interested in.
I think on top of that, it's amazing work to have explanation written in like new languages. So let's say the Bitcoin standard to like 7, 8, 9 languages, but everything then it's limited to this new language. And I think board games are kind of universal. So if you have fun, it's universal as well. So if you have some elements or like items or pieces of a game, and you can use that to explain things, and also at the same time have fun, it works like everywhere on Earth for people that are like older than 12 years old. And you don't need to read a book on your own. If that's not for you, like you can reach so many people on a fun way. Yeah, so for example, board game, but I'm pretty sure there are many more other ways to do this orange pilling in like with a smile and a laugh instead of piece of paper or whatever else it can be. So I'm pretty sure if we can be very creative and try to come up with more beyond books with the same goal, there is still a lot that can be done.
I'm trying to find the page on Geyser, but I can't find it. Can you share the link with me? I'll be happy to show it on the video here and make a bit of a contribution. And yeah, by the way, Geyser is a great way to find these projects and support them, sling a little bit of sats and help these projects get off ground. So let's do that if we can here. There you go. So it's called Blockhunters, geyser.fun/project/Blockhunters. I'm just gonna go ahead and share my screen. Let's do a bit of a demo of how it works. Hope we don't run into demo effect though. Can you see it?
Yeah, I do.
All right. So Blockhunters Bitcoin board game. I'm not going to read all this. You can do that on your own. There's one contributor.
If you go to the entry below. Yeah,
right.
I just published it like yesterday late. So this is like the very first time. Actually, it's also being shared somewhere. Yeah. So here you got a picture of some testing. We did several testing with both Bitcoiners and non-Bitcoiners. And basically what you see is everyone together is going to make a chain of 10 blocks in which there are transactions with a color. So on the bottom right, you see a purple one and a yellow and orange. And there are also private keys that you should, of course, keep secret. And this picture is the end of the game. So the blocks are being made already, all 10 of them. And the game is over. But once you start at only block number 1, and you try to allocate your color in the block with coins on it. And then for example, block number 1 has a 1, a 3, a 2, and a 10, and then everyone starts mining with some mining cards that you also have in your hand, the nuances. And the one that's the closest to the sum of block number 1 is allowed to make block number 2, and you can put your coins and your colors and these transaction cards in the next block number 2. And by doing that, you'll receive a reward, which is coins, which is the halving, like 8 coins in this case. And so by doing this, everyone is always making a block, so it's mining. Everyone's always doing transactions, so you're a user. Everyone is verifying the calculation, so you're a node. Everyone has a private key that you have to keep secret. And everyone has coins. And there is also, like, all these elements of Bitcoin are put together, basically without language, but the concepts are there. And yeah, like it's elaborated a bit more and even better than what I try to explain right now on this page. And yeah, currently it's I think the last to final prototype. And it's fun to see that if you play it with pre-coiners, I think there are no coiners. Everyone's a pre-coiner or a Bitcoiner. And they start to ask questions like, wait, what if I reveal the color of my private key accidentally to like my fellow players? Yeah, well, that means you're going to lose your Bitcoin because they can, at the end of the game, take yours. And for example, like, what if I try to cheat with this game and I'm just pretending that I can make a next block? Like, that's impossible because everyone else here is verifying what's happening in this chain. So it's in the public. You can see it. You cannot cheat. Or like, what if we run out of coins? Or like, why if I don't have enough coins in the beginning, like, it's very hard to win the game. Like, but that's the essence of scarcity. Like, what's going to be in circulation is going to be less and less as long as the game is happening. And then this circular economy is going to happen. That's how you can get coins. And all these kind of concepts, they'll come back in this game. Yeah, I hope to make this, like, put it into the public and a real version, because right now it's prototype, and that's why it's on Geyser to make that happen.
I mean, that sounds amazing.
If I can add to that, I told I'm working on the pay-per-view media publication with Bitcoin focus. We're the first one in Europe to do so. And this is also, we don't do it right now, but this is something we envision that hopefully this is going to scale up. You can do the same with authors that write an article. It's being paid for, and a certain percentage goes directly to the creator of that article through Lightning. And then you have the circular economy where the platform is only facilitating or cool stuff that's being created. So
exactly, like that's what I want. I mean, that's something that we both already want. It's just that we still live in the fiat world. It's a transition period. It's not really super realistic yet, but we have to start somewhere, right? And to be
pioneering.
Yeah, like, exactly.
So people has to be the first, and you find out that there are different mechanisms working in such an economy that you have to think about.
Right.
Whether it's like, wait, recurring payments don't work yet, but will it work? Is this the way to go? And like all these different things, like what's the right pricing for different models? And it's really interesting and fascinating to work on that.
Yeah. And, you know, to be fair, like even a Konsensus Network from our shop, every third purchase is made by Bitcoin. Out of those, about 90% through Lightning. I mean, it's already amazing to me. Like I always chuckle when somebody says like, oh, but Lightning doesn't work. I mean, what do you mean? Well, we've been taking Lightning payments since 2019. And now we're having our own self-hosted BTC-based server that just works. Like it just does the work in the background. Like you have your own payment processor that doesn't take fees. I mean, apart from the network fees, of course, which are quite low. And I mean, this is something also that I want to kind of like help orange pill the merchants, because especially online merchants, because it makes perfect sense. It already offers the superior user experience in payment and also the merchant experience, which is even more relevant because the user, the customer usually doesn't see the 3% or 2% credit card fee that goes with every payment that they make. For them, it's like, yeah, it works great. I don't have to pay anything extra, but you are paying extra because guess what? All the costs that the merchant has, they will transfer to you in the product price, right?
Exactly.
So once we get rid of that,
and that's about the percentage. In the Netherlands, there's Molly, which is popular, but you pay 25 euro cents for every payment through that. So if you go towards smaller payments, for example, a pay-per-view, then it's already going to be 10, 20, 30% of what you're trying to sell, which is profits that you're missing. It's like directly the profit. It's not like something part of a revenue or whatever stream it's part of, but it's like, you're going to make more money by offering it with Lightning. And trying to do it with fiat is possible, but not profitable.
Right.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, micropayments and value for value is going to be the future for sure. Like we're also working on making these ebooks available through Lightning micropayments. So that also should increase profits because now people have the option to read chapter by chapter and decide if they like the whole book without buying the whole book. Even for the audiobook, like you can listen to 1 hour and then decide this is not for me. And then you only pay for 1 hour. I mean, that doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah. I heard this example of, for example, if you take a language course, you might not want to finish the course, but you want to see how far you got until you don't like it anymore. So you can buy like every chapter of a language course instead of the full one. And there's so many use cases in which it makes so much sense.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, and thank you so much for joining and sharing your experience. And yeah, awesome to hear all the projects, especially the board game that I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on and listing it on our upcoming merch shop. I want to start the Money Batcher shop again, which I already started in 2019.
Yeah,
I sold only one coffee cup, but it was against Bitcoin, so it wasn't a total loss. But I think the time might be ripe for something like this, like a shop for, non-Bitcoin, non-book Bitcoin stuff rather. So like we have the Bitcoin flag, which we are flying in the Madeira meetup place right now. That's pretty cool. There's some Bitcoin Legos. There's going to be the Bitcoin board game, all this kind of cool stuff that is not directly related to books, but it's directly related to awareness and education. And of course, t-shirts and stuff like that, run of the mill. But I think that's going to happen sometime this year, hopefully. So keep me posted on this project and any way I can.
And
help.
Also, thanks for having me here, and also for all your work at Konsensus. You've been doing an amazing job as well.
Thank you.
That must be said.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's sometimes you think, your mind wanders like, oh man, should I go get a fiat job and stack some more sats? But it's just, it's not happening. Like, I don't see it happening. It's too important, in my opinion, not to do it. It's the high impact work that I can do to further the progress towards the world that I want to see for my grandchildren. So it's just like, it's a trade that you made with yourself. And I understand the people who choose to make the trade to stay in their fiat life a little bit longer and stack the cheap sats. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not against that. It's just not something that I decided not to do. And that's also a vision for the Konsensus Network, not only to spread the knowledge, but also offer people kind of a way to start easing out of the fiat life and into the Bitcoin standard life. And that's the progress that is ongoing.
It was for me a very good part towards, like I told you, going from graduation in a fiat job, product design, towards full-time Bitcoin freelancing and entrepreneur and stuff. Like it was one of the building stones towards that. So as people are listening, I can really recommend to at least dive into it and explore the option.
Yeah. And so like you can contribute as little as you can. Like, most of our contributors, they do have a fiat job still, and they do this stuff on their free time because they enjoy it. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to offer the daily upkeep for these people for doing what they love as their hobby. Like that's where I want to get as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's possible. That's I think the takeaway.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time. I think It's just a matter of time. All right, man. Thank you so much. And anything else you want to share here? Where can people find more about your work and talk to you?
I think for Bitcoin related stuff, I would recommend my Twitter. It's Starnold with a 4 instead of an A, ST4Nold. Yeah. And so mainly about Dutch things, but hopefully this board game will be like for everyone. So yeah, I would say my Twitter.
I love the fact that it doesn't have language on it, like apart from block, what I can see.
Yeah.
But basically,
and then, like the manual obviously can be in any language, but the game itself,
right?
Everyone.
That's brilliant. I love it. Just like Bitcoin is for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. This has been the Starfish Cast. Our guest is Arnold. My name is Niko, and look forward to the next one. We have plenty of people, more than 50 at the moment, working on this. So I'm looking forward to interviewing everybody. And yeah, do check out Arnold's board game, Blockhunters, on Geyser Fund. Support that if you're into it. Check out ours as well. We are applying for the translation grant to help us scale a little bit more. It's geyser.fund/project/Konsensus Network, I believe. And check out Twitter, obviously, Konsensus N, and our Telegram group, Konsensus Network. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Arnold, for joining in, and take care.
Take care. Thanks.